committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
And a very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord of the CBC Evening News. In our top story, when the CARICOM heads of government meet in Barbados next week, they're expected to continue fleshing out the initiatives that have to be taken to push the reparations agenda forward. This disclosure from Prime Minister Fundell Stewart. He acknowledges progress was being made towards reparations for native genocide and slavery, and that there was consensus across the region that leaders must go in that direction. Mr. Stewart, who chairs the reparations subcommittee, says the heads viewed it as necessary to have talks with former slave trading countries, England, France and Holland. He says this is not a diplomacy of protest, but a diplomacy of engagement, as most of those countries are now our friends, and who better to discuss issues like this with than friends. The Prime Minister reiterates such discussions were necessary so there could be a sharing of views on both sides to see where the scope for some kind of agreement and consensus exists. Well, the National Union of Public Workers says it's willing to call an island-wide strike to settle its dispute with the Barbados Investment and Development Corporation. The union says it may call out all workers of statutory boards, and Shane Seeley has the details.
NUPW General Secretary Rosalind Smith made the union's position very clear after meeting with scores of workers of several statutory boards to update them on the BIDC saga. She told a news conference immediately after that many of the workers were unaware about the legislation governing the age of retirement and the extension up to 67 years. Ms. Smith says next she will be making a recommendation to the union's General Council on Tuesday and will be issuing a new deadline to the BIDC. The union boss says the agency now has two options.
We are still giving the BIDC management a time to reflect and withdraw the letters, or they would have to pay the workers as if they are retiring at 67. They're the two options. Failing that, as they say, we will await Council's decision and we will move from there. But we have not ruled out a shutdown of the country.
Meanwhile, NUPW officials also updated the media on moves by the severed BIDC workers to get legal representation and take action in the form of an injunction. While that move has not been initiated by the union, President Akani McDowell says the NUPW supports it.
Anything that can bring some resolution to the matter, we will indeed back. I don't see why not. The aim here is to make sure that those workers are satisfied. And if they can assist themselves while we do what we are supposed to do, I think that is all well and good.
And NUPW officials say workers who attended today's meeting gave their full support for any escalation of industrial action. Shane Seeley, CBC News.
Well, the Barbados Workers Union has given absolutely no commitment to a date for the distribution of option forms to staff in the Customs Department. The forms are part of efforts to transition the Customs Department into the Barbados Revenue Authority. This is coming from the BWU General Secretary, Tony Moore.
The BWU reiterates our position, therefore, stated to the Minister of Finance in our last meeting of 1st June 2015, that no artificial date should be imposed for the presentation of option forms. No July date, no September date, no December date, no date. We have agreed to rather the issue of option forms should follow satisfactory resolution.
Meanwhile, Ms. Moore believes the government, trade unions and citizens should be concerned by the disrespect shown by the Barbados Light and Power Company Limited. This follows the severing of 19 people by the company earlier this month, just one day after they had met with the union, with the understanding that the parties would meet again for further discussions. But Ms. Moore thinks meaningful discussion between the government and the social partners could have settled things earlier.
Well, the Barbados Workers Union accepts that the Light and Power may have and would have to readjust operations to meet new technological approaches. And while we recognize that this might lead to job losses. We were and continue to be satisfied that meaningful, mature discussions involving government and the social partners could have resolved this issue in the same way that it has resolved other equally challenging issues in the past.
Human mistakes have been listed as the main factor that led to the collapse of the short-lived West Indies Federation in 1962. The political union, comprised of Barbados and several other Caribbean islands that were colonies of the United Kingdom, was formed in 1958. Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM, Robert Bobby Morris, is of the view a system was not well developed back then, which would have provided a foundation for federalism.
The attempt at functional federalism could have been carried on further, and more regional institutions could be formed, more and more conferences and discussions. Once the University of the West Indies was set up in 1948, it should have been allowed to produce a number of graduates intended to fill the positions in a regional institution. But here we were, between 48 and 58, 10 years, and you did not have a sufficient pool of qualified persons. When you look at the situation now, you see the difference.
And Ambassador Morris was speaking during a lecture at the Queen's College School. He says the dissolution of the West Indies Federation left a negative psychological cloud over the entire region. We'll have more news in just a moment, but first we want to get your take on this question. Do you think the NUPW can pull off a national shutdown? You can text yes or no to short code 8111 and we'll have the results for you at the end of our news.
Dear Clark, I've made a fascinating discovery, the institutional water cooler. Its gravitational pull sucks people from their workstations at the busiest times of day to stand around it and chat about emerging global trends like, will pink be in fashion next season? Meanwhile, the world slows to a stop as it waits in line to be served. I don't see that trend at Globe Finance.
Globe Finance. Think outside the bank.
When it comes to their financial service, slow is out, swift is in.
The time is near for the world's greatest soca event.
The Flow Soca on the Hill.
At the Folly Hill National Park, Barbados. Come see the Queen of Bacchanal, Destra, Low Rick, Ricardo Drew, RPB, Biggie Irie, Skinny Fabulous, Soca Sensations, Lead Pipe and Status, Benjai, King Bubba FM, and still the best of Crop Over 2015 still to come. Get your early bird tickets now from official box offices before the price goes up. Sunday, July 19th,
The Flow Soca on the Hill.
Don't miss this fantastic offer. For a limited time, get 25% off select wines at the Platinum Wine Store in the People's Market Complex, Tudor Bridge.
Make no mistake, when you're looking for the #1 source of the latest business news in Barbados, the region, and beyond, it has to be The Bottom Line. Produced and presented by me, Ryan Broom, every weekday morning on CBC's 94.7 FM at 7:50 a.m. It comes to you with the kind compliments of the Barbados Workers Union Cooperative Credit Union Limited, reminding you to save smart and borrow smarter. So remember, make it your business to tune into The Bottom Line, the best source for business news on the radio.
Do not abuse the privileges of free transportation. The message to school children is coming from former magistrate Faith Marshall Harris. She believes the minivan culture is not suitable for them.
So don't let the transport board buses pass while you wait for a ZR van, which is playing the loud, lewd music, or where the conductor is going to obey commands like, the baby wants milk, and therefore put your and all the other passengers in danger of losing life and limb. You are no longer babies, so there's no need to rock the cradle, and milkshakes belong at the fast food places. So Do not expect this from the conductor of your ZR van.
Ms. Marshall Harris was speaking at the Good Shepherd Primary School graduation ceremony. The theme was "Let Nothing Stand in the Way of Your Dreams." The top student there was Chelsea McLean. Ms. Marshall Harris also warned students against joining gangs.
Although I've been told that there are no gangs in Barbados, but whatever you may wish to call them, children before the juvenile court have told me that there were pressure to join gangs and some gave in to the pressure. Whatever these quote-unquote gangs were called, it was clear they were up to no good and have every intent to do harm. So I urge you to steer clear of them.
Parents are being told to take greater control of their children. The advice is coming from veteran broadcaster Anthony Admiral Nelson. He was a featured speaker at the graduation ceremony for students of the St. Patrick Roman Catholic School last evening. The Admiral says parents need to be able to monitor their children and also punish them when necessary.
If your child's bedroom has a lock, take it off. Anytime you have a situation where your child can lock you out of a bedroom, you have to be paying rent, though. Have to be paying rent. No.
The Admiral also had some advice for the graduates. He told them not to limit themselves in terms of what they choose to study.
You may have in mind what you want to do now. And sometimes when that happens, we limit ourselves to the subjects that we can do. Never do it. Do everything that comes your way. You never know when it's going to help. So if I didn't do geography, and if I didn't do chemistry, and if I didn't do maths, and all the other subjects that I needed to do, I would have been in real trouble, because I am in an arena where basically you have to know a little of everything.
Well, BICO and the Kiwanis Club have launched a joint venture to help the less fortunate in the island. The initiative scheduled for the Massey Car Park at Warrens on the 3rd and 4th of July is aimed at children. It allows them to bring food items in exchange for a complimentary scoop of ice cream. President of the Kiwanis Club of Bridgetown, Malcolm Smith, says looking out for the children of Barbados has always been important to the club.
This is important for the Kiwanis Club of Bridgetown, because we have always seen it as our mandate to protect young children, to nurture young children, and to ensure that all children in Barbados have the type of life which would encourage them to be productive citizens of Barbados. So the Each One, Reach One project encourages young children to give back. So we're starting from very young to teach children to be benevolent and to give back to their communities.
And Special Events Manager for BICO, Barry Farnham, also spoke at that press launch. He says they hope to make the initiative an annual event.
We're trying to get this initiative built, so we'll have it annually and make it basically a staple between BICO and Kiwanis. We want to have that partnership and grow it so we could see the future and basically give back to the children in need.
Well, Barbadians and visitors will soon get insights into the musical lives of some of the island's seasoned entertainers. It's coming through an event entitled Sand, Sea and Soca Unplugged. Organizer Anderson Timeless Birch says the event was conceptualized to give patrons the opportunity to hear more about the artists and their careers.
We realize that there are not enough events for older people, mature people who don't want to go to an event and jump up, walk up, and carry on like what the young people really do. So we decided, you know what, this year crop over, let's try something different. Let's create an environment where people can come, sit down, have something to eat, have something to drink, and actually listen to an artist tell their story or how they got started in the industry, you know, and talk through exactly how they came up with certain songs, and give that vibe, and create that vibe, that energy.
The second event in the series was held last evening at Wiser's. The featured artist was Blood, who told fans some of the stories behind the hits which came during his 30-year career. He also praised the organizers, noting that the event is timely as it comes around the crop over season.
It's as good a time as any. It's crop over time right now, and we had one that was done already, and I think, you know, with a guy who has over 30 years in the business. It would be interesting to come and do something completely different. You see me at all of the parties, you see me at all the fests and that kind of stuff. You see me in the tent, but now here, a different setting, a cooler vibe, and it's something interesting and new for the thing.
Well, still to come, a look at some of the stories making headlines across our region. But first, a reminder that we want to hear from you on this question. Do you think the NUPW can pull off a national shutdown? You can text yes or no to short code 8111 and we'll have the result